Well, hello and welcome to Rosie's Preserving School, our pressure canning workshops, not our canning pressure workshops. The first live actual cooking from start to finish. So I hope you'll find it useful and interesting and delicious. And we're going to be looking at beans today, all different kinds of beans. We're not actually going to be really examining the beans or going into all their different attributes, but why we do it and how we do it. But what I'm going to do first of all is get you to start weighing out your beans, because what we really need to do is get the canner actually heating up, and to do that we need something to put in it. Rather than spend a lot of time talking right at the beginning, I want to get things going and then I'll go back and talk about the specifics. Now I'm canning 500 ml jars. You can do any size jar that suits you. And I put a bean chart in the downloads. So you've got a 500 ml and litre jars there with the amounts per jar. So I've got 14 500 ml jars because I haven't got any I can show you done because we've eaten them all, my stock for the winter. So I want to stock up again and get plenty done today. So I've got haricot beans in 3 jars. Let's get the camera switched over, which are the little tiny beans that end up as the famous baked beans. So I've got 3 jars of those, 3 jars of cannellini beans, which go into my cassoulet and things like that, 3 jars of red kidney beans, and then I'm going to do 3 jars, but the red kidney beans are for chilies and things. And then I'm going to do 3 jars of chickpeas, which I will make into hummus. So I'm going to show you what to do with the beans. Don't worry if you haven't weighed out your beans or anything. You know, you'll have plenty of time to kind of catch up. So what I'm going to do is weigh them in the jar. Now you'll notice from the table, the smaller beans you can have a bigger weight than the bigger beans, and that's purely because when they swell up they don't take up as much room as the big beans. You have to kind of limit the amount of the bigger ones so that they've got room to swell in the liquid. So I'm putting the jar onto my scales this time because I've got something else in scale pan. So I'm just going to weigh them into the jar to start with. And it's 135 grams of chickpeas. And it's actually not very many. Let me pick the jar up, that's easier. You want to be quite precise with this because of the amount of room. You can't just sort of keep putting more and more in. Annoying though that can be sometimes. So I'm going to do the 3 jars ready. Oops, too many. There we are. And the last one. Right, so I'll put these out of the way. So that's my last 3 jars. So I've got some water in my scale pan here, purely because I'm trying to work within a set space, so you don't have to restrict yourselves at all. And I've got a sieve in there, and I'm going to tip the chickpeas into the sieve in the water and give them a bit of a shake about. Then any that rise to the surface, or sometimes there's loose skins from the outside, especially with the bigger beans, you just take those out. But these days, if you're buying from a company rather than buying a sack of dried beans from a producer, you're not likely to find, stones and all that kind of thing like you used to. So I'm going to put my wide mouth funnel on the top of the jar and just tip those chickpeas in. And the next one. I get all of my dried beans, peas, all that kind of thing. In fact, rice, everything like that from Buy Whole Foods online. I don't get paid for giving them a plug, but I do find they're the best ones really in the marketplace, the most reasonable, and the best packaging and everything. Now you can see with this one, I don't know whether you can catch it on there are one or two sort of skins floating to the surface, so I'm just going to take those out because we don't really want to just process them. The skins will come off a bit when they're being processed sometimes, but it's all fiber. Put those in. And the last one. Always try and get in the habit of using your wide mouth funnel, but every time you've got to put something in or out of a jar, because it helps to stop the glass getting contaminated with anything so that you get a better seal. I'll get this out of the way. Right, I don't think I need the scales anymore. Now that's 12 jars with beans in. I've got my 2 extra jars because I can get 7 on a layer, which I'll show you when we get to that bit. But the 2 extra jars I'm making up with an experiment, which I don't want to confuse you with, but just so you know, I am putting 14 jars into the canner. Now this is the fruit salad that you buy, that a dried fruit salad that's in big pieces. Sorry, too far forward. I don't know if you can see it there. It looks sort of like that, just the big pieces of fruit. And what I've done is put a layer in the bottom of these jars, which I should have weighed it before I did it. But it's not a very deep layer, as you can see. And I've topped it up with fresh orange juice, but I've only gone halfway up the jar because this fruit will really swell up. It will take in the orange juice and swell. So I'm doing this because I've never found a recipe for this. So I'm trying it out to see what happens. And we'll see what happens. I don't know what's going to happen. So they're done. They're going in. They're going to be my 14 jars. Now, I know the recipe says you can top up with hot water, and you can, but I am going to show you, I'm going to use cold water, and the cold water in the canner, mainly because I've only got 1 hob here and I can't have a pan with hot water going as well without a lot of rearrangement. So I'm going to do it with cold water. You can do it with hot in this instant. Usually you use cold filling, cold water in the canner and start everything off at the same temperature. So let me just show you these. These are 2 new jars on my fruit salad. And when you buy the jars from us, they're the French jars, the parfait, they come with the screw lid in place on the top. And people are often contacting me and saying, you haven't sent the seals, you haven't sent the seals. But they're inside the lid under this cardboard protection. So you just take that out and tip it over onto your hand and the seal is there. Now, these jars already have their liquid in. The beans I am going to top up. Now, you need to leave headspace. Have I put it in there? Yes, 2.5 centimeters or 1 inch of headspace. You need 1/2 teaspoon of salt into each jar. You don't have to put the salt, but it helps, as I've put in the instructions, with the hardness of the water. And I found, for me, it just is the right thing to do. If you're going to make up, you know, a huge amount of jars, you can make up a big amount of water as specified, but I just find 1/2 teaspoon in each jar does the job. I don't add any other seasoning, as some people add sort of herbs and things like that, but I prefer with all of my canning to keep it quite plain because it keeps it versatile. I can, when I come to use it, it can go any which way because I haven't flavored it with something that won't match what I'm going to be making. So now we need to top them up with their water. So you need to leave the inch at the top. Get the water here, make a bit of space. And on the Le Parfait jars, they do have a maximum line that molded into the glass, but some things take more room up than others. So always pay attention to the recipes, what it says, because you need to have room for everything to expand. So I'm just going to ladle in because the jugs these days aren't that reliable about pouring. Once it gets down a bit, I can pour, but when it's full up, it will go everywhere. So there's no problem with mixing your beans. They all take the same amount of time. It's on the size of the jar you need to pay attention to, because the bigger jars will take slightly longer than the smaller ones. And don't worry about American recipes with pint jars and quart jars. They're interchangeable. So the pints are 500 ml, the quarts are the litre. They may not be exactly the same measurement, but the processing times and everything are the same with the 2 countries. So don't get sort of too hung up and look at it and think, oh, it's an American recipe, I don't know how to use that. Just get used to measurements. And if I were you, if you're going to do a lot from American recipe books, is invest in a set of cup measurements that are actually measuring cups, because you don't want to be at sort of at your phone the whole time trying to get a comparison for grams or ounces. Right, I can probably start pouring this, and I'm probably going to need a bit of a refill in a minute. I won't have quite enough. Can you fill that for me? But not fill it, half fill it, it's fine. Cold, yeah. Okay, so now once we get to that bit, you're going to need either a headspace tool, the piece of plastic that comes in the tool kits or with the canner kits, or you're going to need a chopstick or a dinner knife or something, you know, just that is easy to stir things with. I'll just finish topping these up. We are. I would get whatever you're going to use, get it and keep it for doing this job. Otherwise, you'll always be searching for something. I just keep it in my pots of tools at the front of the canner there. It's just got a blunt end and it's narrow, and that's great. You don't use a wooden spoon or a spoon, because when we come to be doing meat and things like that, you need something that can get into gaps. So that's why a chopstick is good, or the proper tool, or a flat rounded end dinner knife, something like that. And you just need to go and ease the beans about with the headspace tool, just to make sure you release any air pockets, because they all kind of knit together very well in the jar, all very neatly, and it means that the water doesn't get in there, and you don't want air pockets if you can possibly avoid them, because they heat up and expand and force out the liquid sometimes, which is called siphoning, but we'll cover that when it happens, or when we come to it. So just make sure there are no air pockets. I can't tell you the number of times I've got things in the canner and it's all steaming and I think, oh, I didn't do the air pockets. So, you know, don't worry, Aunt Julie, about it if you forget, but just try to get into the habit of doing it each time. It's like learning to drive. If you learn to drive properly in the first place, you don't develop bad habits and that you are difficult to correct later. Right, so that's all my beans. Also just going to do my fruit here, just to make sure. Goodness knows what's going to happen with this. I've no idea. But I figured they're dry like a bean, so what's the worst, you know? So that's that. If you want to check the headspace, you can do it with the serrated end of the headspace tool. That's what it's for. You put it on the side of the jar, let the top touch the water, and it will tell you, you can read off what the headspace is. So I'll put that in there. Right, let's get to sealing. Are we all okay for processing where you are? Or do you need a minute just to catch up? Okay, Sally, thank you. That's a good idea. Right, don't need that. It's myself. I'm just going to turn my hob on because it takes a while to warm up, so I'm just going to give it half a chance of catching up with everybody. So to put the seal on, you need a clean cloth, or I use kitchen paper, and you need white vinegar. I've got some in this little bowl here, and this is my canning vinegar bowl. That's what I use it for. And you dip it in the vinegar and you're going to wipe around the top rim of each jar. And then you get the seal for that jar. You hold it by the edges with your fingers. You don't touch it anywhere. You dip in more vinegar and just wipe round where the seal is. Now I know we haven't touched them and they are clean, they're out of the factory, but if you've done it, you're more likely to get a good seal. So pop that on that jar and we know that one is done. Get a fresh bit of the paper, turn to where you weren't doing it before. Do the same again on every jar. Don't worry if a bit of vinegar goes into the jar. You never taste it. And then do the seal. The lovely thing about doing pressure canning is you don't have to sterilize the jars and all that like you do with jam and chutney and things. So the processing sterilizes everything. I mean, obviously, if they're actively dirty, then wash them, but you don't have to heat them or put them in hot water or do anything to anything. You can just seal it up. So a bit more vinegar around the top, around the lid. I mean, if you haven't got distilled malt vinegar, then just use whatever you've got. I mean, I've used all sorts. I mean, it's just because it's benign, really. It's just colorless, and you know, if you've got red wine vinegar dripping into something that's pale, then it's perhaps not what's desirable. I only put the vinegar on the kind of rubber seal because that's the bit that's actually touching the glass. That's the bit you want to stick down. I'm turning my piece of paper all the time. This is what I like about pressure canning, though. You can do a whole, sometimes depending on what you're canning, you can do a whole year's worth of something in one go. You know, obviously things you use a lot of, that's not the case, but it's very efficient, I think. And these beans will last us at least 6 months, I would say, for the way that we use them. Right, that's 3. the last one, and it's my new lid. Ah. So I've got all my seals on. So now with the parfait, you get a full lid for each jar, and it goes on with the processing. If you've got ball jars or kilner jars, they'll have rings, but it's the same thing. But just put them on and just do them so that it starts to get firm. Don't do them up tightly. As during the processing, the air, everything's going to get under pressure. The contents of the jars are going to expand, the water's going to expand, and it needs to be able to push the air out, which is what keeps the contents safe in storage. So just do them up just as it starts to get tight. I've never had it happen to me because I use Le Parfait jars and I've always used them. I've never had a seal that buckles, but sometimes if you do them up too tightly, the thinner seals like Kilner and Ball can buckle and distort, and that can prevent them from sealing accurately. So it's best not to. It doesn't want to. That's it. Right, 2 to go. Right, so the canner needs to be checked before you use it, ideally before you start heating it up. You need to check that this vent here is clear, and you do that by holding it up to the light and looking through it to make sure there's nothing obstructing it. That everything is moving freely that should move, that the seal is in place and hasn't got any damage or food or anything like that on it, and that the gauge is done up tightly with the nut inside. I've got my canning rack at the bottom. You should never put the jars straight onto the base of the canner. And I'm going to start putting the jars in now. No, I'm not. I'm going to put the vinegar in next. The vinegar you've got left in your bowl, about 2 tablespoonfuls, just put that in the water. And that stops any lime scale attaching itself to the outside of your jar and leaving a sort of white residue, which is annoying. Doesn't look very nice. It doesn't matter which order you put. If you've got a mixture of beans, you can just put in, just get the jars in there. It doesn't matter what they are. And one in the middle. Now, if you want to do a second layer like me, you put in either a second canning rack, which I'm hopeless with this, getting the things under the camera. You either put in a second canning rack, or you can put the jars in offset on each other so that you're not stacking them straight on the top of the lid of the other one, if you see what I mean. I'll do that today so you can see what I mean. And then you've got your canner 2/3 full, which is the max. You have it stacked right to the top. And the last one goes in the middle. There we are. So now we need to put the lid on the canner, because we need to get the heat in and the pressure up. Now all the jars have got the heat up, and the contents of the canner itself, the air and the water. So you put on the canner so that the lid, so that the V's line up on the top here. This handle has a V on it, and the top has a V on it, which isn't very easy to see, I know. And the handles are offset, and to close it, you just swivel it round, and your canner is closed, but not pressurized. I'm just checking to see I've got it centrally on my hob, because the hob is smaller than the base of the canner. And then we just discussed the weights. The canners come with a sort of universal weight, which goes on to this pipe. But I am going to be using a 3-part weight set to 10 pounds. This weight can pressurize to 15 pounds. By that bit is 5 pounds, and each of these is 5 pounds. So if I put one of those on, I can set it on the vent, and then I don't have to watch the gauge all the time. But first of all, we have to get this venting, which means by steam coming out of here in a column, it means that all the air has been heated and is expelled by that venting, and then you can close the canner and it will start to pressurize. So camera will be able to see the 10 pounds, even if I can't. I can see it sort of where the needle is in the camera, so that's okay. And I've got it on the heat, and we've just got to wait now until that venting starts, which will probably take about 10 minutes. So if anyone has questions. Oh yes, how much water in the canner? Yeah, good question. It's 3 quarts, which is 3 litres for Presto. Different canners have different amounts, and they'll be in your handbook that comes with the canner if you've bought a different model. But for the Presto, it will be 3 litres. And it's always the same. It doesn't matter how many jars. It doesn't matter how many jars that you have in the canner. Doesn't make any difference. You start, and the water doesn't have to come over the jars or anything like that, as it sometimes does with water bathing. It's just that amount, which then creates the steam and so on. So which is another thing to bear in mind. If you've got to watch when it's closed and it is getting up to pressure, that you haven't got steam and an extraordinary amount of steam leaking out of the canner from somewhere, because that water will eventually evaporate and the canner will boil dry. I've never had that happen, but it could happen. But we know we've got the fail-safe sort of bung here, which will blow if the canner becomes over pressurized. I've never had that happen either, and I've never met anybody that had excuse me, that's happened to. So, you know, I want you to relax about this process. It sounds sort of complicated, but it isn't once you started doing it several times, and it isn't dangerous. The canners don't explode, so things might happen that might alarm you in extreme circumstances, but it won't explode on you. But I do understand the fear. It took me a long time to feel comfortable with what I was doing. But you can hear it sort of making noises. You can hear the water when it's bubbling. You can hear the metal heating up. It's sort of ticking away. And there's always a certain amount of sounds going on, which again, you do get used to what they are and what they mean. So we haven't any more questions at the moment, which is hopefully a good sign. But have you, the three ladies cooking, have you all got the same canner, or have you got different ones, or? Oh, that looks, Rosalind's looks like the Presto.
Sorry, I couldn't catch what you said there.
Yeah, I just wondered if you've got the Presto or whether you bought a different model.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, we're all kind of singing from the same hymn sheet then. I still haven't managed to unpack the All-American I bought, but we will get to that. There's been so much to do. I don't want to rush it, you know. I keep opening the top of the box and thinking, oh gosh, that looks it's so well packed, and everything, all the box fits all the pieces. I know once I start unpacking it, I've got to keep going. I haven't been in that place to be able to give it that amount of time, I'm afraid.
I've just got that, but on the top of mine.
Yes, yeah. Well, you don't put that on yet, but
No, I know. Yeah.
I'll tell you what to do with it when we get there.
I've had a couple of goes and it seems to have worked all right.
It depends. See, I've got electric hobs, and it's difficult to control the heat quickly enough. So by the time the temperature's getting up, you've got to anticipate it and turn it down. And I just found it took a lot of babysitting. I think if you've got a gas hob, you stand a better chance of regulating it more easily. So Sally's, yes, Sally, it's a good idea, Sally. She's going to do a few workshops before she buys anything. That was the point of doing it, and starting at the beginning and going through gently so that you could build up a sense of what you would use it for, how you would use it, where you would keep it, you know, and the things that you make. So that's exactly why we did it this way. Let me just get some of that out of the way and clean up my table a bit. The thing is to take it in your own time and assimilate things, and not rush into it, because it is. I read an extraordinarily bad article today online, which I won't name the people involved, but it really, because they sell the jars for doing this, they were kind of implying, oh, well, the equipment's really simple and easy to get hold of, and canning itself is just a dream, and it's really easy to do, which it is, but it's not. You should take it seriously. And as I said in the last workshop, or the first workshop, in actual fact, you need to pay attention to the rules and kind of stick to them. It's stupid not to, because in this country we don't have a history of doing this, and it's in the US, where they've all come from, that, you know, they do have the experience. So the article was very sort of gung-ho, and they said our grandparents have been doing this for hundreds of years. Well, they haven't, you know, they just haven't. And so I was a bit surprised really at the article, but you need to be careful where you get your advice from, really. And I've always looked at experts, and so I'm going to get my knife ready just in case. It does take a long time to heat up. That's the only thing.
Why don't you try it?
Try what? No, no, no. Is that? Oh, that's her. I did try. I'll try to keep it.
All right. Yeah, Sally is also saying she's appreciated our straightforward guidance and the fascinating history of preserving. Yeah, with preserving, people don't always do it as I've learnt to do it with you. Never have any problems with what I have done. That's great, Sally. And I don't make any pretense that I am an expert at pressure canning. I have been doing it for 11 years or so, but I'm always learning, and I will pass that on. And if I don't know something that you need to know, I'll find out. It's, you know, that I'd be a fool to sort of pretend that I know all of things, and I don't think it's a good idea, as I said before, to try and learn the recipes. I think you need, because all the pressures are different, the timings are different, the quantities in the jars are different. I don't feel confident enough to work without some sort of recipe to work from. And I don't intend to even try to do that, because I think I'm safer and my family are safer if I follow the rules. You can see it's very easy to leave out things that you should have done, like the air bubbles, or wiping the seals and all that kind of thing. So it's a good idea to have a book that you are confident with and use it as a background recipe. You don't have to it doesn't have to be exact, as long as it's the style of the thing that you want to be making, and it has some of the ingredients that you want to use. Then you can use the pressures and the quantities and so on as guidance, and that's what I have done all the way through, really. And I don't personally, I don't pressure can whole meals. I do ingredients because I find that easier to manage. And I'm currently writing my own book, which details that. It's not all about starting from scratch and what you do and all the rest of it. It's pressure canning set mixes or ingredients you can then use in different ways to create your own meals very, very quickly by opening a few jars. It seems a cheat. I'm only now getting comfortable with it after several years of opening the jars and mixing them and making them into a dish and heating it up. It feels like I kind of have not trying very hard, but I've done the work. I've done the work doing the pressure canning. So I've got to get over myself and just think they're lucky to have something put on a plate in front of them, Yeah, it's not the best advice, Rosalind, but actually I think you can. It's you're in danger of getting the pressure up too quickly and siphoning liquid out of the jars. But again, I haven't had that happen, and I always, because we're here in the country on the end of the line, as it were, I always have to have it on high, otherwise I'd still be here at 7 o'clock tonight waiting for it to heat up. So just keep an eye on it. If you start to hear it kind of rattling around, then turn it down a bit, but get some heat into it. And I can hear mine starting to hiss now, so that's good. You do get used to it, you know, it's little noises. So I must get my tea towel ready. They have their foibles, the Prestos, and there's no point me complaining, I don't think, to Presto about it, but especially the airlock, the canner lock, this bit here, is supposed to just pop up. But in it, I've only known it do it twice, and I don't know why it did it those 2 times, what I did differently. But I do find that because it leaks steam, which then condenses into water again and forms a puddle around it, that puddle keeps the airlock down. And you can see it sort of rattling around like this, sort of trying to release, and it can't. So I always have a pointy knife, which you can't see, pointy knife and a cloth ready. And when it's struggling, I just stick the point of the knife and it just releases the pressure. I don't lift it up. I've just got to push it with the edge of the knife, and it's enough. And I have a tea towel all folded up, and I wipe away the water as it forms with that. But you have to be careful not to burn your hand doing that. But it's happened to other people. I've had phone calls about it, and you know, you just have to, it's something that happens. You know, a friend of my daughter's years ago, when I was talking about something or other, he'd say, well, it's nature, isn't it? That's how he spoke. And that's kind of, I could say that about, well, it's Presto, isn't it? Yeah, it wouldn't be any point complaining to them. It's just what happens with water and steam. So you have to kind of find a way around it. But nothing's going to happen to the gauge until this cover is on over here, over the vent, because that closes the canner completely. And so no steam can get out, and the pressure starts to build from then. So you won't see anything happening on the gauge for ages. I'm just going to get myself a glass of water because I'm starting to particularly throat. I could use the map against it.
Oh, I wonder if I can speak now.
Sorry?
Oh, hello.
Hi. I just went to get a glass of water.
No, I couldn't find the thing to speak. Yeah. I've got my gas on hot. I wasn't sure whether it was hot jars and hot water, so I did it as cold, I assume.
Yeah.
So
That's all right. That's absolutely fine.
yeah. So I've put it on.
You should match them. You should have,
Yeah.
if you've got cold jars, cold ingredients, and you put cold water in the canner.
Yeah.
You know, it's no point at this point me saying, oh well, you can get away with this or that or something else. I think you need to get in your head hot ingredients. You need warm hot jars and hot water, that you need to have the canner on before you start loading the jars in, so that it's all at the same temperature. Because again, you're trying to prevent kind of hot spots in the jar where it kind of heats around the outside but doesn't get to the middle. and siphoning and all sorts of other things. But if you just stick to that as a general principle,
Yeah.
as I say, I did put in, you could put hot water in the beans, which you can, but it really, you should stick to cold, which is
Yeah.
what I've done today.
Yeah.
Um,
I've got a bit behind because I weighed all my beans out and put them in different jars because I didn't know if we were doing hot or cold canning. So I'm all cold at the moment. So I've got
okay,
it will take longer to go up to heat. I haven't got it on full. It's just
yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's all ideal. Don't worry. You know, it will. I've never done a workshop live with live canning, so
Yeah.
we've just got to work through it. I think it's the purpose of this is not to produce immaculate videos for the future. The purpose is to let you do it with some backup that you can ask at the time, and we get the job done, however long it takes. I'm not here looking at my watch and thinking, oh gosh, this is taking forever. It will take as long as it takes, and it will be different every time we do it because things are processed for different times. So we'll put the clock is not an issue, and if yours aren't up to the same pressure as Jane's, then you know, so be it. They won't be the same as mine, most likely, because all of our heat sources are different powers. And but the object of it is to build confidence and allow you interaction so that you can ask questions that happen to you right here, right now. Not, oh, I meant to ask this, or oh, you know, this is what it's for. And we'll all learn from what you ask. I will learn what you need to know, and it's, you know, it's exciting because I don't know that anyone else does this, you know. So, oh, your vents popped up already, Jane. Oh wow. So you can put your cover on then, your valve cover there. So you can turn your heat up a bit now, Rosalind, because your water, it will be heating up gently, but you can turn yours up a bit. The thing is to avoid shocks, you know, and doing anything too fast.
Well, I turned it up a bit before, and that's up like 3/4 up now.
Yeah, that's it. So Jane now needs to start looking for her gauge going up, and you need to be at 10, Jane. That's what you need to keep it at. It won't get there just yet, but keep an eye on it.
Off the mark, it's come off 0.
Have you got gas or electric?
It's electric, it's an induction hob.
All right, okay.
This is the bit that scares me.
Actually, I said you could put your vent on. Did you have the steam coming out?
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Want to drink that?
Right. Now I can hear mine is I can hear the steam inside it, but it's not venting yet. I can't see the steam coming out from here yet. It's a watch pot, isn't it?
It's to about 5 now. Is
Okay.
it going too quickly? Should I turn it down a bit or?
Yeah, you need to be able to keep it at 10 or
Yeah.
there or thereabouts. So when it gets up to about 9, I would be turning it down a bit. Which it's Rosalind going when she comes back.
Oh,
now.
I'm here. I'm listening.
Okay, which sort of weight have you got, Rosalind?
I've got a jiggler from you.
Good. That's good. So you need to just have one washer on it.
There it is.
Yeah. So
It's got one washer.
you need the stem bit and you need one washer. So and that will give you 2 lots of 5. The stem, that single bit is 5, and then you put one of the rings on, which it makes it 10.
Yeah,
And
that's it.
then you don't have to watch the gauge. Not so closely anyway. Don't go off and watch the rugby and leave it to itself.
My husband watches the rugby.
I can hear the jars. I can hear the water bubbling around the jars, and they tend to sort of move very, very slightly, and you can hear them. So that's good, which means we should soon see some steam coming out. I don't know, Jane, whether you vented yours for long enough. You should let the steam come out of here, even if it's locked. You should vent it for 10 minutes. So
Oh,
I'm a bit
oh, I forgot about the venting for 10 minutes.
but I wouldn't worry today. I think you'll probably be all right. If we were doing meat or something, I'd be a bit. We're all watching for steam. It's very obvious when it happens. So I can hear my lock here starting to move as well, which is a good sign. if you ever see steam coming out from anywhere else that it shouldn't be coming out of, then you need to, when you've finished and it's all cooled down, you need to examine the canner. It may be that the seal needs changing inside. And with ours, I think, I'm not sure where it is, there's a dribble mark that goes down the outside where it routinely dripped liquid out all the time, and it would form a pool, and I was always wiping it away. And when we looked at the canner, the top of the body of the canner, the metal rim, had a tiny little rough edge, which when we sanded it down and smoothed it off, it solved the problem, but it was just holding the seal up away and allowing steam out, and it used to take ages to get up to pressure, and that was because it wasn't actually 100% sealed. So I'll stop watching it. It's a kettle, isn't it? Watch kettle. Just to look something up in here. Stop watching it. Yeah. When I came out, because I didn't want to be staggering about the chemicals of water. Can't find it now. Yeah, in my Presto there was 3 litres of water. It says 3 quarts in the book, and you can equate a litre to a quart. So I put 3 litres in earlier. I know you didn't see me do that, but it was in there. I did it earlier when I was prepping the table. No, I can't find what I'm looking for. Come on. How many jars did you do, Rosalind?
Hang on. I did. I think it's 9. Is it 7 on the bottom and 2 on the top?
Yeah,
I
okay.
did prepare, like I said, I prepared my beans before, but I should have, like I said, I wasn't sure about hot and warm jars, so that sort of slowed me down really.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, it's okay. No, I didn't know because mine's having to heat up 14 jars, so you know, it's taking a bit
longer.
quite a long time. So you're catching up with me. How many did you do, Jane?
8.
Sorry,
8.
8. Yeah. So
So I did 7 and then 1 just offset on the top.
yeah, that's all right. It's fine. I rarely manage to do 2 layers, to be honest. It's just today with the beans. I thought I'm going to go for it because we do use them a lot. So
It's very exciting.
so this vent here is starting to sort of spit water out, which is good. It sort of shows,
Oh,
you know, it's getting close, and this one will start as well, I'm sure. I'm going to try and show you the steam column. I don't know if this will show, it will show up against the or not. It may not. No. No, this room is quite warm. Sometimes when it's cold, it's very obvious. I can see it there. Well, I'm going to put my timer on for 10 minutes, which is how long you should leave it to vent for to make sure you've got all the air out. Well, trying to do it with a bit of tissue to see if it blows it up in the air, but it's not yet. I'm going to burn my hand if I'm not careful. Huh?
I could just see like a little splutter every now and then. That's all.
Yeah, yeah, but if you were here, you could see it sort of puffing out steam as well, but it's difficult to catch it in view. It's down there, it might.
Well, I can just about, I can see it every now and then, a bit of steam.
Yeah.
Now. I can hear gurgling in my panel.
Good.
Oh,
It's about 3 minutes. I think.
turn mine up again a little bit.
Yeah, good. I mean, I've got mine on 6, which is the maximum, so yeah, Sally's saying she's got an Aga with a hot plate, a simmering plate and a boiling plate. And it's going to be difficult to control the heat, but you may be okay, Sally. As you say, you need to try it first, and but a lot of people do go for a separate hob because it also gives you the option of where to can. You know, you might want to not do it in your domestic kitchen for reasons of you know, children running around, or you know, height. With me, I find on the table it's a much better height. If this was on my hob at home, it would be so much higher up, and I find it really difficult to sort of control it all. So to have a hob on the table is good. And some people, you know, have a sort of pressure canning shed, you know, they do it in all sorts of things, so it gives you flexibility, but the options are there if needed. But I think we're suffering a bit from everybody being at home watching the rugby and putting the kettle on and stuff, because our power goes up and down in we find this on a Wednesday evening when I do the other preserving classes, that so often the power just drops away, you know, when you're in the middle of cooking something. But it's still steaming, so when the timer goes, I'm going to pop my valve on and see how whether this is, I don't think this is not ready to go up yet.
Mine's just come up to steaming. I put my timer on.
Good.
Like a nice steady steam coming up.
Yeah, I can see that really effectively now. Can you see it against that? Feature, I can see. Yeah. Yeah.
I've got that little bubbly bit. You know, the bit that come, not the black rubber bit. What's the other one
The
called?
lock.
The lock. That's sort of bubbly.
Yeah.
So I've just been wiping that.
Yeah. Mine's got a great bubble of water on the top of it. Yeah. No. I can't see it on there. Yeah. Oh, yeah, I can now. Yeah. 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 That way. Yeah. You can see my cano lock, how it's all
Yeah.
sort of steaming and bubbling and everything now. It's sort of getting ready to pop up, but it probably won't. So I've got my knife ready. And you can see the steam coming out of the. Keep wiping that. Right, that's my 10 minutes then. So I'm going to put my weight on my jiggler weight with the 10 pounds. I'm going to put the cloth over my hand because I find it, sometimes if the steam's just coming out, it catches you.
Mine's popped up. Do I put my jiggler on now?
No, when your timer goes for your 10 minutes.
All right. Oh, flipping out. I've got another 6. I've got another 6 minutes.
My lock is up. So now we need, once you've got the jiggler on and the lock, the canner is locked, you now need to watch for the pressure to get up to 10 on the gauge. And that's when you start your timing.
Ooh. So I've got, oh, it's just on. Hello again. So I need to vent mine for 10 minutes, even when that lock comes up. I've got to do the full 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's right. So I've got another 4 minutes yet.
they're kind of two different things.
Yeah,
The lock is actually locking the canner so
Yeah.
that you can't inadvertently take the top off while it's under pressure. It
Yeah.
just means that it stops at anyone opening it.
right.
Because now, if you were to take the top off now, it would just explode hot water, steam, and probably
Yeah.
food as well. So
Yeah.
it's to prevent that. This is regulating the pressure in there.
Yeah,
And they happen simultaneously, but they're two different things.
right, right.
Yeah.
I've got a real strong steam coming out.
I should turn it down a little bit. Just a little bit, not madly. Always surprises me how long it takes for it to start registering on the dial as well.
I don't want to turn it down too much because I don't want it
No,
to start
don't.
cycling.
No, don't, but you don't, as long as you can see the steam
Oh, yeah, it's definitely
You
coming
know,
in.
yeah, well, you don't want too much steam going because you'll lose too much water
Well, that's what I
in
was
the
thinking.
canner. But you're fine, don't worry about it. How long have you got to go on your timer?
What, 2 minutes now, I think.
Yeah. Well, get your weight ready, and like I say, I always put a tea towel over my hand because I've been caught a couple of times when it won't go on immediately. You get a little spurt of steam. Can be quite painful. Are you managing your pressure all right, Jane? Is it staying fairly constant? Sorry.
Yeah, I've turned it down lower than I normally do, and it's holding at about 12.
Okay. Well, 11 is fine.
Yeah.
If you're using an ordinary weight, so you've got a pound either side. So for that type of weight, which you've
Yeah.
got, it's 11 psi. For the jiggler weights, it's 10. So you're okay. You're a pound within a
Yeah.
pound either way.
I think I'm going to turn it down one and see what happens, and
Yeah.
then turn it back up if need be.
Okay.
I've popped my jiggler on.
Good. And now you've got to look for the pressure going up. I mean, mine's just lifted off of the naught, but once it gets up to 5, it starts to go quite quickly. So, but your weight will keep it steady. But what I generally find is when it gets up to 10, you can turn the heat down either 1 or 2 numbers, whatever sort of heat you've got, just to keep it at 10.
Funny, my cooker hasn't got any numbers on it.
No, what have you got it on? Electric or gas or?
No, it's gas.
Gas. Yeah, we'll just turn it down slightly. I've got my electric hob, so it's got numbers, but I'm starting to go up now. I can see on the screen. That's better. I can see it now. I know when it's at 12 o'clock, it's on 10. That's taken a long time to get up to pressure. It's just always, but always at home. I'm doing other things. I'm sort of, you know.
It's supposed to be up to pressure now.
Yeah, it's up to us.
Yeah.
Oh, I shouldn't be moving.
Mine's not central, my husband's telling me. I shouldn't really move it, should I?
So
So my pressure canner is not quite central on my ring.
well, you can do it gently, just sort of.
Very gently.
Don't lift it.
Sorry,
Don't lift it.
No,
just-
don't lift it.
Go
Yeah,
What did you say, Rosie?
don't lift it up, just sort of
Okay.
on.
gently.
It's coming up to pressure. I thought I got it. I did move it back. You know, I moved it the wrong way because the pan out didn't it forward before.
That's the one.
That's my technical expert. Thank you, Barry.
Skewers, like, you know, when those bamboo skewers and don't have pipe cleaners anymore, do you? We used to always have pipe cleaners when I was a kid. You really smoked a pipe. Yeah. Pressure's going up. Close to 5. The only little tiny bit is the bubbles in it that make it look like it's. Have you all got 500 ml jars, or have you got litre jars, or
I'm 500 mils.
yeah? Well, the 500 ml, when we get to timing, you're going to time them for 1 hour 15 minutes at 10 psi or 11 for Jane, because she's got the different weight. If she's got 500 ml jars, if you've got 1,000, it's 1 hour 30 minutes. If you've got the litre jars.
Do I need to? Oh, she's fine.
Looks like mine's up at about 8 now. From 5 to 10, it pressurizes quite quickly, or the pressure rises quite quickly. It's the 0 to 5 bit that takes forever. So that's 75 minutes.
I've just noticed there's some steam coming out of my lock. Is that normal?
Out of
Some steam coming out of my lock. Is that normal?
the lock,
Yeah.
sometimes it can do that.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, when you're not using it, just examine it and make sure there's nothing. I'd take mine to bits now and again and wire wool it, but it unless it's excessive, I wouldn't worry. It'll probably expand a bit with the heat as time goes on. Sally's asking about mixing different size jars. You can do. It's not best practice. You shouldn't mix something as different as 500 and a litre because they have different processing times. But I quite often use the Le Parfait have a 750 ml jar, which actually is quite a good size for us to use for our family, and that I sometimes mix with the 500, and I just do the 500 a bit longer than they would usually have. I go from the timing. I just add on a bit for the 750s. Excuse me, because most of the books don't give a 750 jar size, so I give it a bit longer. But I don't know how critical that is, to be honest. It all seems to be fine. And it's only 15 minutes difference between the 500 and the litre size. So another 5 to 10 minutes should be fine. But I wouldn't mix very small and very large jars because they just have different processing times. Right, it's coming up to 10 psi for me, and the jiggler is starting to move around, and I'm going to let it move so you can see what it does to regulate the temperature. It's not advisable to let it madly jiggle about and keep releasing steam because you are going to lose water. But it's good to see what it does. It's doing its job. It will keep it at around 10 by moving, and if I stop talking you can hear it. You can see the amount of steam it's releasing, you can see how much it's moving, but ideally it should just gently rock if necessary. The idea now is for me to turn the heat down, so I will turn it down 1 and see what happens. Trouble is with electric, it takes quite a long time to actually have an effect. So I'm going to start timing now because mine is up to pressure. So I've got 75 minutes on my timer, which I will start now. And I'll wait until Rosalind's underway and got her timer going. And then we're going to have a break. You'll still be able to see what's happening, but we're going to have a cup of tea and sit down because we've got an hour and 15 minutes. We don't want to all just stand here. We're kind of making conversation. if you, it doesn't come routinely, Sally, it comes with the other weight. Which is this one, which is just a static weight, which goes on to close that vent, and then you control the pressure with controlling the heat. The jiggler, you can, the jiggler you can buy separately, or if you buy the pressure canning kit, we include one in the kit. And the kit, the compound price of the kit, with all, it has the things in it that you generally speaking will need, is very much cheaper than buying all the bits separately. But I'm not here to sell you stuff, I'm here to educate. Five, Jane, you mean 5 minutes? Huh? Oh, 5 o'clock, okay. Well, when you're done, if you just turn yours off and wait for us, and then we can all do the same thing at the same time, more or less. Okay, so I'm going to turn that down one more because I don't want it losing this much steam at this stage of the game. And try and get it so it's just gently, either if it's not moving at all, then it might be cooling down too much. And you have to look at the gauge to see what's happening. But as long as it's reasonably active and you can still hear everything bubbling around, then you know, the point of the jiggler is that you don't have to stand here for an hour and 15 minutes watching it like a hawk to make sure it stays on pressure, because you might have children around, you might have pets around, you might have a phone call. It's handy to have the weight actually babysitting it for some of the time. You just still keep an eye on it and never really go too far away from it once it's pressurized and working. That's not a good idea, you know, don't go start hoovering the bedrooms or something, because it, you know, anything can happen. So once Rosalind's started her timer.
I'm still losing steam through my lock, but I've only turned it down a fraction. It's gone up to 5,
Yeah,
the gauge, so
yeah, well, it takes a while.
yeah.
Is the lock right up?
Oh yeah, the lock's right up, but it's still steam's escaping through it.
Yeah, well, you might be able to put either put something round it, the
Yeah,
valve, you know,
Right.
like roll up a tea towel and put round it, or because you don't want to push it down,
no,
you know, that isn't good. But I wouldn't worry about it too much.
all right.
I don't know. Well, he's up, but it's losing steam. On my hob, I find that if I leave it on 4, it's moving like this and it's sort of moving too much. If I turn it down to 3, the whole thing dies away, and I have to sort of keep on alternating between the two. So depending on what I'm doing and for how long, I decide whether I'm going to let it rock like this or whether I'm going to control it more accurately. when we come back after the break, although you'll still be able to see the canner working, if you can find, we won't be able to open the canners immediately. They've got to depressurize. But I'm going to give you some information in that time. If you've got a pen and paper ready for that. And also, if you can find an old towel that you don't mind, being used, if you get one and fold it up and put it ready, when you take your hot jars out of the canner in a bit, then you've got something to put them on to save your surfaces and everything else. So if you want to leave them in the canner until it's very much cooler, then you're welcome to do that. I usually do that. I don't usually handle really, really hot jars unless I've absolutely got to. But today I'm going to see if I can get the canner open and get the jars out so you can see what's happened. And I want to show you what happens with the lids and everything. So I've turned it down a bit and it's calmed down and it's just a gentle rock now. So have you got your timer on yet, Rosalind?
No, not yet. I've heard one or two pops inside.
Sorry?
I've heard one or two little pops inside my canner. So I don't know if something's siphoning or I haven't got my lids on right.
I didn't catch the first bit.
I've heard like a little pop inside. So I don't know if it's something to do with my lids, whether there's siphoning or I'm not sure.
Well, we won't know, will we, till we open it? Where is the pressure?
Hang on. It's 7.
All right, not you'll soon get there now. Is your hob a mains gas hob or a bottle gas or a canister?
No, it's a mains. It's a main gas. We do live in a village.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It does make a difference. People laugh at me, but I know that the power varies, you know, quite considerably.
It's a big village, but we do live in a village.
Mm.
Right, it's on the dot of 10 there. It's on the dot of 10.
Good.
So they get the jiggler's not going yet.
No, but start timing. Put your timer on for 75 minutes.
It's just starting to rock now.
Yeah, well, keep an eye on it. You might need to turn it down a bit. Put your timer on.
Yeah.
And we'll be here, and if anything happens to either of you, then just shout and we'll hear you. You know, we can see and hear you, but if necessary, but we're going to sit back now and wait for ours to cook. You know, otherwise there's no point just sort of everybody just waiting, is there?
Enjoy your cup of tea then. Enjoy your cup of tea.
Yes, and you. I'll see you back with a pen and paper, and we'll come back. How long have we got? I've got 60 minutes. So if we say in 45 minutes time, Jane will be finished, Rosalind won't, and it'll be close to mine. So
Okay.
finishing, I mean. Yeah, about 5:15. Okay. Didn't want to startle you all. Oh, goodness. Well, I hope you managed to grab a drink and put your feet up for 5 minutes. We've got eight minutes to go on my timer. I think Jane is probably finished. And Rosalind will be a little bit after me. If there's any... Yes, Sally. Well, I hope you did manage to get the dog walking. Otherwise, he's not going to be very pleased. Yeah. Oh, good. He did. So everybody's calm. That's good. I just want to talk a little bit about what to use your beans for. I'm sure you know better than me what you like using the beans that you pressure can, the ones that you've chosen. But I think they're a very, very useful thing to have on the shelf, even if you don't kind of water beans too much. They're a brilliant extender or filler to other meat dishes like cottage pie and things like that. You can add them in. Obviously, you can have them on their own in a mixture. You can put them in curries, that kind of thing. But also remember, with pressure canned food, there's no need to reheat. So you could, in the summer, drain 2 or 3 types of the beans that you've canned, mix them together, make a nice oil and vinegar dressing, maybe chop some fresh herbs in, and make a 3 bean or 5 bean or however many beans you've got salad, either to eat as a lunch on its own with a few salad leaves, or to be part of a bigger meal. But there's no need to reheat. So once they're pressure canned, they should be safe. The other thing that I wanted to, I'm just checking, I've told you everything about that. The other thing I was going to tell you about is storing your jars. Once we've taken them out of the canner, you'll see here I've got a can. This, I mean, meat in jars doesn't look pretty. It really doesn't. But this is a bacon and mushroom pie filling, which is in the jar there. It didn't have any extra liquid added, so the liquid that's in there has come out of the meat and the mushrooms, and then the fat has also come out and stayed on the top. Now that's going in, this is our Sunday lunch. I'm probably going to make a suet pastry and either make a suet pudding with it or roll it up in like a Swiss roll with the filling and bake it in the oven. I quite like baked suet pastry, but I haven't had it for years because I haven't had anything to use it for. So I'm going to experiment with that tomorrow. But I thought I'd just show you, this is how I store my jars. If I can get it under the camera, you can see on there, I've got a paper label stuck on the top. I've got bacon and mushroom pie filling, 9/22. So I made it last September. Now that should have a 4 to 5 year shelf life. And as I've said before, the cost of that is sealed in that jar when it was pressure canned. So whatever happens in the world, whatever happens to prices, that the price of that meal stays the same as it was in September 1922, even 5 years on. So it's worth thinking ahead and doing things that will sustain whatever you and your family want. You know, don't go by what I do for us. I'm just showing you possibilities and ideas. But that is stored like that on the shelf. Take the lid off. We're not going to do that today because when we take it out of the canner in a moment, well, when it's depressurized, it'd be more than a moment. You need to keep the lids or the rings on until for 24 hours really, minimum. But then you take them off and you store the jars like that with just the seal. And then if anything should go wrong with what's in the jar, the seal will be lifted by any gases that are given off. And it will be obvious that the food has gone off. Now, I've never had that happen. So I'm not saying it's something you need to look out for all the time. But if you store the jars with the rings on, sealed down tight, those gases can build up and the jar could crack or even explode, depending on what make of jar you're using. I know Kilner jars can sometimes do that. So the seals can fail for other reasons. Either there was some residue on the rims of the jars, or the seals were compromised in some way or disturbed, which is why you leave them for 24 hours. just for everything to depressurize, create the vacuum inside the jar, which holds the seal down. If you take them out and start messing about with them, or tipping the jars around, then that seal can fail. And there are other reasons that they can fail in storage, but that's generally to do with processing, if they've been heated too fast, or that kind of thing. So I thought it's worth showing you that. It does mean you end up with bags and bags of rings, or for Le Parfait, the lids, because you only ever need the rings and the lids that you need for processing. But every jar comes with its ring and lid, or lid. So you do end up with lots spare, but they don't last very long because they do rust, because they're only made out of thin sort of tin, the rings and the lids. So, you will need to replace them eventually. So all is not lost. And they do come in from handy for other things, if you've got a mix of 2-part glue or something in a handy dish to do it in, because you can throw it away afterwards. But and don't store your jars like that either, for the same reason. Don't put jars on top of each other on shelves, because if the seal needs to fail because something's wrong with the filling in the jar, then you don't want another heavy jar stacked on top of it, holding it down. It will be less obvious, and it could just get messy. I know it's difficult because that reduces your choices for shelving and so on. But we've discussed shelving in the first, or storage in the first video. There's all sorts of places that you can squirrel away a few jars, as long as you remember where you put them. I mean, squirreling is a very good description of it, because that's what they do, but they know exactly where they bury their peanuts. I don't always know where I put the jars that I need, but coming down to the last few seconds on my timer is good, that I can be turning off the canner, the heat anyway. Yeah, turn that round to 0, and eventually it will stop jiggling about. Don't take the valve, the covers off quickly. Wait till it's all stopped and depressurized, and you'll know it's depressurized by the canner lock dropping back down, this one here, once the pressure drops. And then it's safe to open the canner. You can take the weight off of the cover there, and do that. At times I've taken the lid off and left it in place, and then it goes rolling across the floor, and I have to find all the bits. So take it off before you take the lid off. But we'll leave that just to calm down and cool down. Now, I was going to give you another idea that you might like to look out for. We can talk about it again in the interim, when we next meet, but it's something to be looking out for, which is the wild garlic. Now, I don't recall until about 10 years ago ever hearing wild garlic talked about, and now it's magazines, it's on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and everywhere. Everybody's always talking about the wild garlic and where to get it, where to find it, and all this sort of business. But I realized that I had it growing in the garden, and I didn't know that that's what it was until relatively recently, a few years ago. It had crept in from the fields and colonized patches, which I didn't realize. So now I pick it every year. But last year I made some wild garlic butter, and that's it in this little jar here. There, and it's only a tiny jar, and I'll hand it to my lovely assistant here and ask him to open it. I've had to put it in these clip top jars because they were at the time were the smallest jar I had, which I think is a 250 ml, And there was a shortage of small jars, and I had to use these, but you can see it's oxidized the clip and everything using it in the pressure canner. They're perfectly safe, but it's a bit of a waste really. But when you use these, always make sure you have this tongue bit, the sticky out bit, away from the spring clip at the sides. And then the idea is to release the spring clip, and you can see it's still tightly fixed down. You pull that and it releases the airlock and you can open it, but I can't, my hand isn't strong enough to pull it, so I have to get somebody to do it for me, rather annoyingly. Even he finds it a problem. So this is the garlic butter I made in April 22, and you can see it makes a bit of a mess of the jar, but apart from the beans and the passata, this is by a country mile the most useful thing I've ever made and pressure canned. It's so easy to use because you know what it's like. If you know, oh, fancy some garlic bread tonight, you know, you've got to crush the garlic, make the butter, and it's all a bit of a faff. With this, you can make a whole load, pressure can it, and then use one small jar in a go, really. And we generally have it on a weekend. I'll get either make a nice loaf or get a French stick or something, and I just take it out and put it on the bread, and I can enjoy it without sort of thinking, oh, what an effort. So sorry, yeah, you see the jigglers stop now and it's all calmed down and I'm not having to shout over the top of it. I'll try and just show you this. It's quite firm in the jar. It smells lovely. And you can see the texture of it. It's quite spreadable. And that would just sit on the shelf. If I can turn this over, you can see the wild garlic there. It does go to the bottom a bit, but I haven't seen a recipe for this anywhere. I know you can pressure can butter, so I just went by that and I put the wild garlic in. I chopped it up in a blender quite finely. I melted the butter and then mixed the two together and put it in these little jars. Now we've got these again, I think they're 250 ml 200 ml jars with their seal, and yeah, these are 200, and you just put it in up to the headspace of an inch or 2.5 centimeters, and then I pressure canned it at 10 psi for 60 minutes because it is it's a fat, and really you know, it needs longer than just doing it like fruit or something like that. But it is so useful, and what I like about it is it isn't that really overpowering garlic flavor. It's just a nice gentle, probably half power to, you know, wild garlic is milder than garlic cloves, and it is just lovely. You can, yes, you can. Sally saying, can you use garlic cloves? Yes, of course you can. You know, you can. I would mince it up or mash it. You know, do it in a garlic press or something. However you normally do it, and mix it in at your normal strength. You can make it exactly what you want it to be. But I just, every time I take it, made. I can't tell you the amount of butter to garlic. I just did what I normally did. I wasn't thinking I was going to be teaching it, you know. So it was probably, I did about 20 little jars and we're nearly finished them. And this is definitely going to be something I do again, but in the right jars this time. So I melted the butter. I didn't do ghee is a fashionable thing now. Everybody's making ghee. And okay, that's great if you want to fry things at a very hot temperature and all that kind of thing. But I just melted the butter and put the garlic in. And I thought, well, I quite like it as butter, you know. I don't need it all the solids taken out and all that kind of thing. So I thought it might be useful for you to look out for. You don't need all that much of the wild garlic, as I recall. It's probably a couple of handfuls, you know, picked, and just chop it in a blender or food processor, or you can chop it by hand if you want, however you normally do things like that. And melt the butter, put in the garlic, put it into warm jars, and then put it into hot water in the canner, and 10 pounds PSI for 60 minutes, and it will keep for up to 5 years. So again, you know, butter's going up in price. Even if you just do plain butter with no garlic, at least you're locking that price in. If you can get some at a reasonable price, is to get it and can it, and then it's there. You haven't got to weather the price increases that we're all experiencing. How many minutes? 60 minutes. 60 minutes to pressure can, yeah. That would be plenty for little jars. I haven't got a more exact time. So as everything's calming down. Yeah. The gauge is dropping. And once it's down to 0, then the the canner lock should drop. And once that's dropped, I can open the canner. So I'll get my tongs ready. I've got some tongs that I use for the hot jars. If you buy no other tools, that I think the tongs are kind of essential. I thought I dropped some earlier. They've fallen down there. But, I'll use those because these I've used them so much over the years that the coating's starting to come off. So I'll get those ready. I've got my towel all laid out because I've laid it out like this because I've got 14 jars, so get used to the quiet after all the hissing and steaming. You'll be switching off soon, won't you, Rosalind? Should be, because your timer went on about 15 minutes after mine, I think.
Hello, you can hear me now.
Yeah,
I've got 3 minutes.
yeah,
3
that's
minutes.
that's about what I thought.
Yeah. You know, you said 60 minutes for the butter. Is that for 200 ml jars? Because you did the smaller jar, didn't you, for 50 ml?
Yeah, but there'd be a lot of them in the canner.
All right. So
Yeah.
So if you did a bigger jar, it'd be 60 minutes, and if you did lots of 50 ml jars, it'll still be 60 minutes.
500 ml. Are you meaning?
No, I thought when you showed us the jar, the little jar.
That's a 200.
Yeah, the jar before with the butter in, that's a 50 minutes.
No, that's 250, I think.
Oh, is it 200? Sometimes I can't hear the numbers.
Yeah,
that's 250.
Yeah, I think so from memory. I can't remember what I don't think we've got those anymore, but it's not so much the size of the jar, it's the contents, and it's because of the butter.
Right.
You treat it like meat,
right,
which takes longer than kind of doing beans or vegetable beans like runner beans or fruit and that kind of thing, because they haven't got the proteins and things in that things like this have got. So yeah, so for that size jar, which is the 200 ml, it's 60 minutes.
Thank you.
Okay, how are we doing? Little way to go. I find with getting these seals off as well, we've got a bottle opener that's got one of those sort of spiky things like a claw on one end that you can lift off bottle tops with, and I find that is easy to remove the seal on the jars as well when you're trying to open it. There are special openers and so on, but that works perfectly well. Sometimes I use the end of a spoon if I can't find what I need. So you just need to lever it off, really. Round here and have a look at this properly. So can you open your canner now, Jane? Is it depressured? Don't know if she's there even. She's probably coming back in a minute. Ah, there she is. Can you open yours now? Is it depressured?
Yes, I've just opened it. Yeah, it's depressured. And I've just taken them out because I don't think I'm going to be able to stay for much longer because I've got friends.
Okay.
But
Yeah.
they look, I'll show you.
Yeah. Wow.
Chickpeas.
They look good. What
Yeah.
are they?
All bubbling away.
What are they?
Chickpeas.
Chickpeas, jolly good. Yeah, they will keep bubbling for quite some time. And that's another reason for not moving them around and, you know, kind of tipping them around.
Believe that they've come all the way up and they just fit in that perfectly.
Yeah, they'll sink back down. And if I'm adding them to a casserole or something like that, I just tip the whole contents of the jar in.
Yeah.
But if I was going to make hummus or something with the chickpeas, I'd probably drain them. But
Can you use the water like you can if you're making a vegan meringue? You know, like if you use a tin of, if you use open a tin of chickpeas, you can use that chickpea water to make meringue.
I know, I absolutely don't know the answer to that.
Don't
The thing is, you're just going to have to try
Have to give it a go.
Yeah, exactly. You know, that's how we all learn. I just don't know the answer to that, I'm afraid. But
I'm so impressed with that though.
well, it saves all that soaking and rinsing and all that business.
Wow. Yeah. Yeah, they filled the jar perfectly.
Yeah, they might sink back down once it cools, and you know, but they're at least they haven't siphoned.
No, none of them. They all look like that. They're all doing all right.
Yeah.
I don't want to be really rude, but I need to go because we've just had some friends arrived.
Yeah, no, not rude.
I thought we'd be done. I will see you on the next one, and I hope
Okay, yeah, not rude at all. It's absolutely
I hope
fine.
yours are just as marvellous, Rosalind.
So do I.
Take care, both.
Okay then, see you next
Yeah.
time. Bye bye. Oh, it's as bad as watching it pressurize, isn't it? Waiting it to cool down. And yeah, I think these little jars are actually really handy for, you know, if you want to do things like food for toddlers and things like that, or you know, when you're for babies, and if you want to just mash sweet potato or something like that and process it, they're ideal. You know, these little tiny ones are really cute. But I thought the wild garlic wouldn't be around yet, but somebody was talking about it yesterday, and I thought, oh gosh, you know, I'll have to go out and look for mine and see if it's coming through. It won't be yet, I don't think, but I thought if I tell you now, you can sort of get it in your head what to do and be prepared. I don't know if you can see some of the things behind me, that's all last year's sort of harvest. There's vegetables that we grew made into ratatouille. There's beetroots, runner beans. There's swede and butternut squash cubed, processed together, but I didn't grow those, but I've done them, and then you can just drain them and mash them, heat them through and mash it. You shouldn't mash food up and then pressure can it, because the heat won't penetrate evenly. So if you want to do things like potatoes or the swede and so on that you will eventually want to mash, you leave it as cubes in the water, and then the heat can transfer much more uniformly. You don't want hot spots building up in the jars. So it's just sort of something to watch out for. But the runner beans were really, really successful. I'm not a fan of frozen runner beans, homemade frozen runner beans. These are the jars I did. They are in salted water, so I just empty the whole thing into a pan and warm them through. They taste like runner beans. They don't taste overdone, you know, overcooked. Whereas I find the French beans, the dwarf beans, they're too soft by the time you come to eat them, and not very, I don't know, maybe it's me, but I don't particularly like them very much. But the runner beans, where I don't like them frozen particularly, these were very successful. But I've never seen these in a book anywhere, because it seems to be only the British that grow runner beans. They are kind of, in America, where most of this proliferates, they don't really grow them. So I just did them as an experiment, and they were so successful. We've got shelves of them. So
How long did you do the runner beans for then?
it's probably, I'll have to look it up, but it was probably 35 minutes. Usually vegetables like that, I just did them the same as the other the other beans, the other green beans, because it's the same kind of thing. I couldn't find a recipe for it anywhere, but they were certainly, they've been very useful for sure. And I'll show you some chicken I did. This is plain chicken. This is just cubed chicken breast, which you can see there. Again, I say meat looks disgusting in the jars, and that liquid, it's just the meat in the jar. The liquid comes out of the meat. It's not seasoned or flavored at all. It's just plain chicken. So that can go into a curry or a pie with other things, or a casserole, anything like that. You can just empty the whole lot in the dish and put in your veg, and if you want to thicken it with some sort of roux, it's absolutely versatile and very, very good. Very tender. It doesn't taste, it just tastes like you've just cooked it. It doesn't taste like tinned meat or anything like that. It just tastes like it should taste. So that's a very good thing to be doing if you're a meat eater. We don't eat a lot of meat, but I like the variety, you know. It's not something we have every day. Nearly down to naught.
I think something might have siphoned in mine. I can smell my food.
Oh, you often can.
Oh,
Yeah,
can you?
yeah. It's not always a bad sign.
I did some was it beluga lentils?
Oh yeah,
So I like lentils.
yeah. Yes, I haven't done any this time, but the other thing I did with the chicken is, you know, you get the soup mix, the dry soup mix, and it's got pearl barley and split
Oh
pea
yeah.
and all that kind of thing in a mix. Well, if you just cook it, it's often still it's not soft enough. It's, you know, still quite hard, some of it. It doesn't all cook at the same rate.
Right.
So I put the dry mix in with the chicken and some stock and make a chicken soup with it. I don't thicken it. It's difficult to thicken pressure can foods before they're processed. There is a product called Clear Gel, which I have here, which is it's a modified starch. The trouble with using starchy things if you used flour, it will split, or corn flour. You know, normally you'd mix corn flour and water to thicken a casserole or something, but it will split and separate, and you get this sort of like a layer of jelly across the top of the food and water, and it's not really very safe. So they modified the starch, and this clear gel mixes into a gel, whether it's cold or hot. It doesn't have to be water, it can be gravy or anything like that. And you mix it, you only need, I'd say, a dessert spoonful to make quite a lot of mix. And you can pressure can that. So if you like thickened, say, fruit pie fillings or that kind of thing, then you can safely use this product in the processing.
Right.
I don't use it as a rule because, as I say, I like my ingredients to remain sort of versatile, and I prefer to thicken things once I know what I'm going to be making with it, and I will do the whole dish and that kind of thing. But it is there, and a lot of people use this, and it's tasteless. It's not some sort of chemical based thing. It's just modified starch. So it's safe to use. You know, you're not adding in loads of chemicals to your food or anything like that. Nearly at naught. So there are options, and you should try and reduce as much fat content as you can. You don't want to be cooking in lots of oil and that kind of thing, because it can go off tasting. I hesitate to say the R word, you know, that it goes rancid, but it can taste a bit strange if you do a lot of adding in a lot of oil-based things or fat-based things, or if the meat has got lots of fat. It's best to take some of it off and just end up with a residue. That's not going to go down just yet. But we'll cover all these things as we go. It won't be the only time I say them. It will go in over time. You get used to how things turn out, what you like, what you don't like. It's like all sorts of other cooking. You know, you try things and you think, oh, you know, I didn't really like that, so you don't do it again. But I'm not a mad fan of pressure can vegetables. I do find they end up overcooked, like I said in the first video, but I also use them when I want to make a quick curry. They're perfectly fine for that. So I'd still do them, but we don't have them kind of as carrots and peas and so on with a roast dinner. I would put them in a casserole or a curry for a quick dinner and flavour it accordingly. We're nearly there. My tongue's ready.
I'll look at this. Mine's gone down to naught, my gauge, but me vent lock's still up. That hasn't gone down.
No, we must be patient. You think though, if you were going camping or something like that, or had a motorhome, it'd be absolutely brilliant, wouldn't it? You can just take all your meals with you. Empty all the jars.
Yeah.
All done in sort of 20 minutes, you know. You sold the tent, didn't you? Almost worth getting another one. Did you put the link up for Whole Foods? Could you? It's oof. Just can put the link up for the Whole Foods people.
Oh, the little pipe's gone down. Little
Oh. You've caught up and overtaken me.
yeah. Oh, I don't know if that's a good sign or not, to be
Oh
honest.
yeah, no, it's fine. It just shows it's depressurized.
But, let's have a look. I heard it drop.
Oh, mine won't go down yet. Still got pressure in it. Can you take your
Oh, do you want me to take my jiggler off?
you could do if you as long as your lock's gone down,
Yeah, no, it's gone down.
and then you could take it. It'll probably hiss a bit, but and then you can take your lid off.
Might leave it for a minute.
Yeah. Mine's completely stopped making a noise, so it shouldn't be long.
It has stopped making a noise. I
Mm.
noticed I kept it at 11 psi. But the little black thing at the back, is it the overpressure something? Sort of came up a bit and that, but
Yeah, but the other side of that, it's got several ribs on the inside. That rubber bung has got several ribs, so it will lift up to the level of the first rib,
yeah,
but it will only blow completely if you've got up to 15
Right.
psi and you're still heating,
yeah, yeah,
and it has to release the pressure.
yeah.
The other day I was pressure canning and I left the second ring on.
Right.
It did for the first time ever get up to 15, and I thought, whatever's that racket? You know?
Yeah.
And I was doing something, and I went and I thought, oh my goodness, it's up to 15.
Right.
I quickly turned it right down, but you know, nothing other than that happened. So
Well, the thing was, I didn't want to turn it down because it was at 11. I didn't want to turn it down too low, and then I'd have to start my processing time again. So I just sort of hung in there. I might try and open it.
yeah. It's ironic, isn't it? I'm the last one finished. Probably because I've got so much in there.
I'll have to find my other oven gloves because these are shorter.
Okay. Hmm?
I'll try and open this.
And it's off.
Got the lid off. So do I leave it for a little bit longer? Because they'll be hot, won't they?
Well, they will be hot, yeah, if you've not got any tongs.
Oh, I have got some tongs.
Well, the canning tongs, I mean.
Yeah,
Yeah, okay.
I'll just take them out then.
Well, get something to put them on first.
Yeah, I have done. It's that side, isn't it? Always getting a muddle.
Yeah, it's the round things at the top and the shaped bit at the bottom. Oh, come on. Doesn't make noise. Oop. That's not going to go down yet. Yeah. Ah, hallelujah.
Come on.
We're down.
Oh, yeah.
Weight is off. Ooh.
Ooh.
Good, I can't see any food floating about, so now it's quite a job to get the first one out with the tongs because they're close together. Wiggle them about so I can get the first hold of the first one. That's it. Whew.
I can't get mine out at the bottom.
You have to just sort of push them slightly so you can just get the tongs down the side. That's the fruit. That must be the red beans. And those are the chickpeas. That's those.
All that.
One of those. If you're doing these another time, Roslyn,
Yeah.
it doesn't matter what the filling is. I'm not talking about beans. Put 6 jars in the bottom and put 3. You know, if you haven't got a full complement, then put an extra one on the top layer and give yourself a bit more room. I mean, you have to fiddle around to get the first one out on a 7-jar layer.
I don't think I'll do a 7-jar layer again.
You just
I mean, is it all right just to let them cool in there? I think.
Yep, you can do that.
I know it's seen that they're bubbling away, but
Yeah, no, they're fine to cool down a bit so that you can actually do it with your hand. But if you push it with the tongs, push one as far as you can one way and the other one the other way, and then you can generally just get the tongs down in between. But it is a fiddle. Right. The water, if you look in, the camera can look in the canner, you can see the water is beautifully clear from having the vinegar in there. It's
oh yeah.
what I need to get is another tea towel because I've used mine as a mat.
I think I've had a bit of siphoning because on the top of one of my jars it's a bit discoloured.
What, the cap or
Sorry,
the lid or the
lid on the top of the jar. I can't get them out.
no?
And I've noticed one's a bit discoloured.
Well, it may be. I mean, usually you'll see it from the water.
Yeah.
The water will be cloudy.
All right.
What I'm doing now is just wiping the tops because there will be residual water on there. And then what you need to do before you leave them to go overnight, I'm not talking about, I know that yours are still in the canner. When you take them out, get a tea towel and then just do the caps, the screw bits up tight.
Right.
That will help the seal to seal because they can work loose during the processing, but protect your hands because they'll be very, very hot. And just make sure they're done up. Because if you remember, we only did them, you know, a little bit tight. Do those up. They look lovely though, the beans.
The 2 I've got look nice. The pinto.
Oh, I feel better now. I'm going to have a stock of beans on the shelf. Right, there we are done. So tomorrow when they're cold, you're going to take your bands, or if you've got this sort of top, you take those off and store them away, and then you'll have your jar with your seal, and you need to just pull it slightly to make sure that it's sealed properly. It's quite easy to do. It's not, you know, there's no two ways about it. It's either sealed or it isn't. If it isn't sealed, then you can refrigerate it and use them within sort of 3 to 4 days, depending on what the contents of the jar is. If they are sealed, then you can just store them away, put your label on with your date, and I suggest you put that on the seal, because you'll be disposing of that. If you stick the seal onto the jar, you'll be forever trying to get it off again to when you want to reuse it. Sally's asking how the fruit looks. Indeed, I can't really, I mean, it has swollen up and it is in there okay, all sort of, it's taken up the orange juice. And what I should do, probably I'll leave it until the next video. We'll open one and see what it looks like. I only did 2 because I didn't know what would happen, whether I'd put too much fruit in or not enough juice or whatever. So I just did 2 as an experiment. But that would be lovely in the winter on porridge or cereal, granola, something like that. You know, it's really nice, especially with the orange juice, I think, rather than just doing it in water. Okay, I'm going to leave you to digest all of that and look at your notes, and I hope when you come to open them, they're successful. You can always get me on my email, rosie@lovejars.co.uk, if you've got a question or you want me to help with something, or you can message me via the live chat on the website. I'm here to help you with this. You know, I want you to be confident and proficient, and it just becomes a normal part of your life to pressure can food for your own use. So I don't want you to sort of sit on problems and not ask me. As I've said, I might not always know the answer, but I will find out if I don't. But pretty much it doesn't really get much more tricky than that. It's just a case of different timings and different pressures. But good luck with the opening tomorrow and the seal checking.
Oh yeah.
I'll see you in a couple of weeks, hopefully, and we'll make some spring chicken soup.
Oh. Oh, oh, spring chicken soup. I thought it was sausages for some reason.
No, not next time.
Yeah, spring chicken soup.
Yeah, I'll put the recipe up shortly. I'll get it done and up, and then you'll see what you need.
Will I need to get the canner heated up slightly before we start? Will it be hot jars, hot canner?
I'll put it in the recipe. I'm not 100% on that one, because I've got all this in my head at the minute.
Oh, all right, yeah.
I'll put it in the recipe. If we can heat it up ahead, we will.
Right.
I'll try to do that if I possibly can, because it's just faster. All of it is faster. It's starting from cold takes a long time.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
Thanks for watching, Sally and Tricia.
Yeah, I think I've said thank you, but thank you very much.
Okay, you're very welcome. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.